Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 301. Thank you so much for tuning in. Got a good show for you today. Got a lot to share. I don't even know that I'm going to be able to get to everything, but whatever I don't get to, we will pick up on Monday. And we're still talking about the debt. We're still talking about the Trump tariffs and his economic policy. I'm going to pick right up where we left off from the last podcast. But before we get into that, I want you to think about 5 years ago, if you were alive 5 years ago. And I want you to think about what it was like going through COVID-19. And you're watching the media, and they have the ticker on every channel of how many lives have been lost to COVID. Same thing. Now they have instead of having the ticker of how many lives have been lost, they have the Dow Jones Industrial Average there in the corner while they're reporting fear. That's what they were doing during COVID-19. You remember all the things that they were telling us, that mask worked, and we know now that mask didn't work. They told us that the kids had to stay home from school. We know now that wasn't true. They told us that hydroxychloroquine was dangerous and ivermectin was horse medication. None of that was true. Everyone who didn't get the COVID vaccine should be dead right now. Should be dead, according to the media and the fear that they were putting out around COVID-19. And I want you to reminisce on that and notice that the same thing that the media was doing back then in 2020 is the same thing they're doing right now around Trump's economic policies and these tariffs that he's implemented. They are projecting fear, uncertainty, doubt. They want the public afraid. And there's a reason for that. And we're going to get into that here in this podcast. So we're still talking about the debt, and people have stopped saying 36 trillion, at least. Now people have started to round up to 37 trillion. Yeah, I mean, just like I've been telling you, we are adding $1 trillion to the national debt every 90 to 120 days. This is what this looks like. How fast we're adding $1 trillion to the national debt every 90 to 120 days. So this is a huge problem. Some people believe it's a problem. I believe it's a problem. But we've had a crazy week of the stock market. It was all about the stock market going into all week. That's what everyone was talking about. It's hilarious because people that if you didn't make any money this week in the stock market, that's on you. That's on you. I mean, I was telling friends on Sunday that make sure you buy in the morning because everybody was predicting a bloody Monday. But a lot of people who knew what was going on, and if you follow this stuff, how could you have not known what's going on? I mean, anybody can buy. Anybody can open up a brokerage with Charles Schwab, Webull, can open up a brokerage to deposit money in. But I get it. If you don't follow this stuff as closely as I do, but I saw the stock market because of Trump's tariff announcement on last week in the negative. And everybody over the weekend was predicting bloody Monday. Monday's going to be bloody. So, I mean, we're expecting a huge downturn on Monday, and everyone who follows this stuff and understands this stuff, even before Trump put out the insider trading message on Truth Social. How insider is that? The guy's got 70 million followers? It's a tight circle. It's a tight circle of this insider trading of 70 million plus followers that he put the message out to on Wednesday that it's a good time to buy. But on Monday, even before Trump put out that message, if you didn't know that it was a great time to buy on Monday, that everything was on sale and you didn't make any money, then it's on you. Now, there's this funny meme. I'll get to that here in a moment. But I want you to look at what the Dow Jones has done over the week. I mean, it's pretty much made up all of its gains from the beginning of the week. If you look at the 5-day, or we're in the 5-day, this is the 5-day. This is Monday here. This is when you should have bought down here at Monday. And this is where it is today. This is the month. And the high in April, on April 2nd, was at 42.2, and right now it's at 40.2. So it's down what, 3%. If you would have told me 6 months ago that we were going to be in the middle of a trade war with China, have a 145% tariff on Chinese goods, and a 10% tariff across the board on another 170 so nations, you would have told me that 6 months ago, and that the market was only going to be down 2%, 3%, I would have said that's crazy talk. That's crazy, but this is what it's done. This is what so it was all about the market all week, and the market has pretty much recovered. This is the 5-day again. I mean, the economic news is great. We got inflation numbers this week. The inflation in March was 2.4%. This is the first time that inflation has been under 3% since 2001. Since 2001, this is the first time. Last month was the first time that inflation fell under 3%. Everybody was saying well, I thought Trump was going to lower prices. I don't know if this is because of Trump, but prices are going down. This is the first time since the second quarter of 2001 that inflation has been under 3%. That's good news. Last month, U.S. added 228,000 jobs in March, beating forecasts as economists warn of turbulence. They're adding jobs. Inflation's coming down, adding jobs, more jobs than expected. I mean, that's good economic news, if you ask me. This is a report from the pollster at CNN. What's his name again? Harry Eaton. Take a listen to what he says here.
This, to me, is one of the most shocking pieces of poll data that I truthfully have seen this year, or maybe in any prior year.
Really?
Yes, really, because I want you to take a look. Cares more about the needs for people like you. You mentioned to Kate Paul, we got a tie even after this terror.
Look at this. This is the question. Which of the two parties cares more about people like you, like about working people, blue collar people? Which party? In 1994, when Bill Clinton and Al Gore were in office, plus 19. 2005, plus 23. This is Bush. This is Trump's first term, 2017, plus 13. And now it's tied? Wow. So this is people, the electorate, Americans, saying that they identify, this is working Americans, the blue collar Americans that the Democrats lost, saying that that now we see the Republican Party is more of a working class party that identifies with us more. It's interesting.
It's more about the needs for people like you. You mentioned to Kate Paul, we got a tie even after this tariff war had already started, split between Democrats and Republicans on how people feel. Which party cares more for needs of people like you? And why is that so surprising? Because I want you to take a look at prior years. Democrats always lead on this question. Back in 2017, before the 2018 midterms, 13-point lead. 2005, a 23-point lead for Democrats. 1994, which was a big Republican year, a 19-point lead for Democrats. And now, all of a sudden, a tie? All of a sudden, the Democrats, who are the party of the people, no more. We get a tie on this question, on a question that has traditionally overwhelmingly been a Democratic advantage. Which party cares more for the needs of people like you?
So the people get it. The people understand what's going on. And the people understand that Trump is making decisions finally. This is what Obama talked about in 2008 over and over again when he was on the campaign trail, the difference between Main Street and Wall Street. You go back to 2004 when, what's his name, who became the vice presidential nominee, the lawyer from South Carolina, John Edwards. John Edwards was running on there's two Americas. And that's what people got to understand is that what these guys did, what Clinton and Gore did, and not only Clinton and Gore, going back to Nixon, and opening up these markets, shipping our jobs overseas. What they did, they hollowed out the middle class. This is what Edwards was running on in 2004. There's two Americas. There's America that it's an America of haves and have-nots. Only two. And that's what you got to understand about communism, because we're going to get into communism as we start to talk about China, because the CPP or the CCP stands for the Communist Party of China, or the China Communist Party. I think that's what it is. CCP. Is it CCP? Let me make sure. I want to sound like an idiot. It is CCP. Chinese Communist Party is what it is. So they're communists, is what you got to understand. And in communism, if you understand communism, there's no middle class in communism. There's the haves and the have-nots. It's the workers and the bourgeoisie, the proletariat. That's communism. And China is communism, communist. And what they've done in hollowing out the middle class, they're eroding the middle class. The middle class is that buffer between the haves and the have-nots. That's what Edwards was running on in 2004. This is what Obama was running on in 2008, kind of picking up, because Edwards had tons of support in 2004 when he was running on that message. It was a message that was resonating, the income inequality. And that's what they created. They created income inequality where there's no middle class. There's only the haves and the have-nots, the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. That's what they want to create. And now in what Trump is doing and trying to empower the middle class, and do what Obama said that he was going to do, but he didn't do, and do what Edwards was running on in 2004, and many others who have been warning about what these people did, and Trump's now doing it, and people are identifying with it. They see the Republican Party now is caring more about them than the Democratic Party. But they told us that it was the oligarchy. So everyone's accusing Trump of insider trading, because what happened was is on Monday, the stock market did open up in the dumps like everyone predicted. Everyone knew that this was going to happen, that everything was on sale. Buy if you were smart. So, I mean, if you got in here on Monday, if you were smart, and then on Tuesday, still going down a little bit more. But then on Wednesday, about midday, Trump puts out a message on Truth Social. Well, first of all, in the morning of Wednesday, he puts out a message on Truth Social in the morning, early morning. You know, the guy wakes up early morning. He puts out this message that it's a great time to buy DJT. So later that evening, around 4 o'clock in the evening, I think they said it was 9 hours later, he puts out the message that he's pausing the tariffs on every other nation, the reciprocal tariffs that he had put on them, and then he was lowering the tariffs to just 10%. So everybody's still getting a 10% tariff at a minimum. But because China retaliated, then he was raising their tariff to 125%, ends up being 145%. But on that news, the stock market on Wednesday, it shot up because predictably, even if you didn't know to buy Monday, if you followed Donald Trump on Truth Social or even on X, then you would have seen him say that today is a great time to buy. And the meme that I was going to mention a moment ago, there's this meme where Donald Trump is saying oxygen is good, and there's all these people holding their breath. Because if Trump says oxygen is good, then you would do the opposite. And there's so many people. Trump's got 80 million followers. He put it out there for everyone to see. But so many people, just because Trump said it, they would not do it, even though, I mean, how's it insider trading? And he's telling you it's a great time to buy. It's a great time to buy. DJT, he even tells you what to buy. But everyone's accusing him of insider trading because they say that he put that message out. 9 hours later, he puts out the message that he was pausing the tariffs on everyone except China, but raising China to 125, which is now 145. And we're in a trade war with China. So everyone's saying that was insider trading. I want you to take a listen to this clip.
On Wednesday, when President Trump said that he was pausing tariffs on most of the world, U.S. stocks were having a mixed day. That changed, however, when the president made his announcement. Hours earlier, Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social to offer some financial advice. And it was simply this. He posted, "This is a great time to buy." Stocks soared on the news of the tariff change of mind, ending trading nearly 10% higher.
So this was early in the morning. Again, this time, 3:37 p.m. is not the real time. This is early in the morning when he puts out, "This is a great time to buy." And then it was 9 hours later, is what I've heard reported. It was 9 hours later that he puts out the message that he was pausing the tariffs, and then the stock market shoots up. And they're saying, so the Democrats, you can't have it both ways. They're saying that Trump buckled under pressure and that it was reactionary, and that he all of a sudden in the middle of the day made this decision because the bond market was tanking, that he made the decision to pause these. I mean, either he knew 9 hours earlier before he put out that message and it wasn't reactionary, and he knew that he was going to do that, or, I mean, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that he was reacting to what was going on in the bond market, and it was just a reaction to put out the message that he was pausing the tariffs. If 9 hours earlier, you're saying that it's insider trading because he knew that he was going to do that 9 hours later, at least 9 hours later, and put out this message that it's a great time to buy. You can't have it both ways. And again, insider trading, that's retarded. The guy has 80 million followers, between 70 and 80 million followers on multiple platforms. It's probably more than that. How's that insider trading? He's telling everyone it's a great time to buy. Stock market's down. So this interaction happened in Congress, and this is the Democrats. This is why Democrats are losing support with the American people, because the American people see what Trump's doing. They like that Trump is fighting for them. And you're having interactions like this in Congress from Democrats embarrassing themselves. This guy is Trump's trade representative.
Mr. Trade Representative, are you aware that the tariffs have been paused?
So what you got to understand is that this hearing that they're having is just after Trump puts out the message that he's pausing the tariffs on every nation except China. And so this guy's going to try to make the case that Trump's trade representative didn't know about it, but in the same back and forth, in the same line of questioning, he accuses Trump's trade representative of not knowing what Trump was going to do, but then also accuses Trump of insider trading because Trump put out this message 9 hours early. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. If Trump put out the message 9 hours earlier saying it's a great time to buy, and that's insider trading, that he knew that he was going to pause the tariffs, then why would his trade representative not know about it? It makes no sense, but these people make no sense.
Are you aware that the tariffs have been paused?
I am, yes.
When were you made aware of that?
Well, I understood the decision was made a few minutes ago. It's something
Sitting
that's
here-
been under discussion.
Sitting here, under discussion. So did you know that this was under discussion, and why did you not include that as part of your opening remarks?
So typically what I don't do is divulge the contents of my discussions with
What are the
President
details of the
Congress.
pause?
Well, my understanding is that because so many countries have decided not to retaliate, we're going to have about 90 days.
No, excuse me? China increased their tariffs on the United States. Trump blinked.
So Trump blinked. So understand, he's saying Trump blinked. China, that Trump was reacting to the fact that China, because Trump increased his tariffs on China, and then China increased tariffs on us. It's a trade war. So the point that he's making is that Trump reacted to China's action and he blinked, and that's the reason that he put the message out in haste that, oh, we're pausing the message. I mean, if Trump was blinking, then why would he raise the tariffs on China? These people make no sense. If it was China's action forcing him to blink, then why would he raise the tariffs on China and lower the tariffs on everybody else to 10%?
Understanding is that because so many countries have decided not to retaliate, we're going to have about 90 days.
No, excuse me? China increased their tariffs on the United States. Trump blinked.
What's the blink, sir?
What do you know about this pause? What are the details of it?
Well, the
Just told you.
details, as I understand it, is that China continues to retaliate. Other countries didn't retaliate. The president 2 or 3 days ago said we wanted to negotiate with those countries that asked for meetings. That's what we're doing.
What are the
We've had
details?
discussions.
How long is the pause? How many days?
90 days. It's in the news, fool.
I understand it's 90 days. I haven't spoken to the president since I've
So
been
the
in this
trade
hearing.
representative hasn't spoken to the president of the United States about a global reordering of trade.
Yes, I have. I've
And
just
yet
been in the
he's-
hearing with you, sir.
But yet he announced it on a tweet. WTF? Who's in charge?
The president of the United States is in charge.
And what do you know about those details?
Well, as I mentioned,
It looks like your boss just pulled the rug out from under you and paused the tariffs, the
See?
taxes on the American people.
So he pulled out the rug, and so he's making the case that the message that Trump put out, that he was pausing the tariffs, that this guy didn't know about it. But then they're also trying to make the case that Trump knew about it 9 hours earlier when he put out the message that it's a great time to buy. You can't have it both ways.
There's no strategy. You just found out 3 seconds ago, sitting here, we saw you.
we've been discussing a
If
variety
you
of these
came
actions
here
for a
knowing that you were going to be turned off, that these tariffs were going to be turned off, why didn't you include that in your opening statement? Why didn't you reference that as part of your testimony?
Well, I don't disclose my conversations with the president, sir.
These were specific questions we asked you all along. What's the strategy? These are real consequences for the American people and small businesses. I had a group of small businesses in my office earlier today talking about the impacts of these tariffs on aluminum and steel. This is amateur hour, and it needs to stop. What does this even mean for your negotiating strategy? How are you in charge of negotiation if the president is tweeting about this from wherever the hell he is?
The president was elected, and he runs the trade policy, and I advise him and execute.
Yeah, not you, buddy.
It's the trade policy.
I execute the trade
Did you
policy
know
with the president.
that this was happening?
We have been discussing all kinds of
And there's another
options.
member of the cabinet, Bessent, who just canceled coming to the Hill to avoid talking about the market because it's in turmoil. This in just days because there was no strategy, there was no plan. The president chose to take actions that he didn't even have the authority to take.
So there was no strategy, there was no plan, and Trump also is guilty of insider trading because 8 hours earlier he knew that he was going to lift the tariffs and everybody was going to make money. See what they're saying?
He's put our economy in disarray and near collapse.
Near
We have
collapse.
small businesses and Americans
Near collapse. Now Dow Jones is down 3%. Near collapse.
who are concerned about their well-being, people's retirement, people's 529 accounts went down because of this administration. We have people that are planning to send their kids to college this fall. People who are retiring.
Guy's embarrassing himself.
Whose benefits have declined. Is this market manipulation?
So now it's market manipulation. So now it's market manipulation. After accusing this guy of being ignorant and not knowing that what Trump was going to do because Trump acted in haste because he was pressured by China, even though he raises the tariffs on China. So he goes from that accusation to now it's market manipulation because of the message that Trump put out 9 hours earlier. These people are clowns.
No.
Why not? If it was a plan, if it was always the plan, how is this not market manipulation?
It's not market manipulation, sir.
Well, then what is it? Because it sure is not a strategy.
We're trying to reset the global trade system.
We're trying to reset the global trade system. We're trying to reset the global trade system. What else? That shipped all of our jobs overseas and hollowed out the middle class.
Offshored all of our factories.
And what has that done? How have you done? How have you achieved any of that?
Well, that's what we're working on right now. We've been talking about the Clinton administration. This is when most of this stuff got off the ground. And I was telling you how that the Democratic Party used to champion using tariffs and they used to champion workers and used to fight for workers. It used to be the Democratic Party. That's why this poll that Harry Eaton is talking about, that's why he's so surprised now that workers are more affiliated with the Republican Party, because back in the past, traditionally, workers have identified with the Democratic Party, that felt that the Democratic Party was fighting for them. And that used to be the Democratic Party. And I played the clips, a little bit of Nancy Pelosi saying that we need to restrain China and use tariffs. She goes in, this is 6 minutes. I don't have time to play all of Nancy Pelosi again. I played Bernie Sanders, multiple clips from Bernie Sanders saying that we need to use tariffs and we need to, restrain China, that China was taking advantage of us. I want to play a few clips from Chuck Schumer. He's the minority leader in the Senate. I want you to listen to what he says, because we are in a trade war with China, and we've been in a trade war with China. Chuck Schumer, he admits it here on the Senate floor that we are in a trade war with China. Back in 2011, he was saying that we were in a trade war with China. We're 14 years down the road now, still in a trade war with China. But now the only difference is now we have a president that is fighting. Obama didn't fight the trade war. He supported it. Joe Biden didn't fight the trade war. I'm going to show you what Joe Biden said here in just a moment. But listen to Chuck Schumer.
Our economic relationship with China needs a fundamental change, whether it's poaching intellectual property, unfairly and illegally subsidizing Chinese businesses, monopolizing rare earths, not allowing American companies to compete in China on issue after issue after issue. Americans have grimaced, shrugged their shoulders, but never done anything effective to, in large measure, stop the Chinese pursuit of unfair mercantilism. The administration must impose duties on those
duties or tariffs, okay?
Imports to offset or countervail the benefit conferred on foreign producers and exporters by government subsidies. We're already in a trade war with China, and we're losing.
We're already in a trade war with China, and we're losing, is what Chuck Schumer said in 2011. And yes, we were in a trade war with China back in 2011. We're in a trade war with China now. The only difference is that now the United States is gauging. The United States has an executive that's engaging in the trade war. Here's more Chuck Schumer. Take a listen.
Look, I think the president's doing the right thing. China has been taking it.
This is 2018. So this is when Trump was president. the first time in his first administration. He's talking about Donald Trump.
Look, I think the president's doing the right thing. China has been taking advantage of us for two decades. They're stealing our intellectual property, which means stealing our good-paying jobs. And I, frankly, am closer on this issue, not on many, but on this issue with President Trump than I was with Presidents Bush or Obama, because they did nothing to tell China off. Now, China...
Bush, Obama, Clinton, Biden, none of them did. None of them are doing what Trump is doing. And listen to what this guy is saying. He's saying that I see it the way Trump sees it. I'm more aligned with Trump than I was with Bush or Obama. Now, Biden wasn't president back in 2018, but we all know what Biden did. I'm going to show you what Biden did here in a moment. So he says that I agree with China, with Trump's China policy back in 2018. I agree with Trump's China policy and fighting against China and holding China accountable and using duties, which are tariffs, to hold them accountable. I agree with Trump because China has been taking advantage of us, is what Chuck Schumer used to say. This is Chuck Schumer on the floor of the Senate today. He just gave this speech this week.
The past 8 days have been an absolute embarrassment for President Trump and for everyone who truly cares about this country. During these 8 days, the world saw the President of the United States reveal his total lack of understanding of international trade.
So his total lack of international understanding now. In 2018, I'm more in line with Trump than I was even with Obama or Bush, because of his trade policy against China. And now you don't understand anything. These are not serious people. These people are not serious people at all. And if you take them serious, then something's wrong with you.
Saw the President of the United States reveal his total lack of understanding of international trade, macro and microeconomics, and foreign relations. The world saw the American president issue a tariff ultimatum so ill-conceived and so flawed that it was mocked from here to the Heard and McDonald Islands. This whole episode is so ridiculous that even the writers of Veep and the House of Cards would have shredded their drafts.
Wow. And embarrassing. I mean, embarrassing is what it is. I want you to listen to what Kevin O'Leary, he's Canadian businessman from Shark Tank, what he says about China. Now, what he says, when you listen to what Chuck Schumer says back in 2011, China's taking advantage of us. We need to rein in China, use duties. I agree with Donald Trump's policy on China more than I do Bush or Obama. So Kevin O'Leary is going to say, when you hear him speak, he's going to say the same things that Chuck Schumer used to say. So the truth of the matter hasn't changed. It's something that's changed with Chuck Schumer, because the truth about China is what Chuck Schumer used to say, and what Kevin O'Leary, who is a businessman who does business in China, is currently saying about China and the way they do business. Take a listen.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it and sell it back here. Never has an administration. 400% tariffs? What would that look like? I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. It's just not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric. Finally, an administration that puts up and says enough.
Finally, someone is taking them on. Someone is this has been going on for a long time. for a long time, going back to this speech that Nancy Pelosi gives back in 2096. We're going to listen to a little bit of Nancy Pelosi here. What's Nancy Pelosi talking about?
Endorse the status quo. As I mentioned, it's about jobs, proliferation, and human rights. And there are those who say we shouldn't link human rights and trade and proliferation and trade. I disagree. But if we just want to take up this issue on the basis of economics alone, indeed, China should not receive most favored nation status.
I mean, so it's been a problem going back to 1996. And finally, a president is taking them on. And the media, I'm going to tell you why the media is putting out all the fear and all the uncertainty. That's why, because they're invested. Like I told you in the last podcast about Disney. Disney's not the only one. They're invested in the rise of China at the detriment of the United States. This is another clip of Kevin O'Leary. I want you to listen to what he says.
Handle this. What do you think they're going to do at this point in this?
I think the rhetoric will continue to build. That's why I was an advocate for why are we messing around? Just go to 400%. Get everybody on a plane. Let's meet in Geneva or wherever. Look, what are you going to do? 25% every day until you're at 400? Just go to 400. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes impossible for them to access the American market, which is 39% of all consumption in the world.
So I've been saying that it was like, I thought that the United States was like 26% consumption. I haven't checked this out, but he says that the United States consumption of world consumption is 39%. And I believe him. I mean, I don't know where he's getting these numbers from, but if the United States consumption is 39%, forget about it, people.
Percent of all consumption in the world and 26.1% of the world's GDP, China cannot do without America, period. And the reason that Xi would care about
most countries, that's the problem. That's the issue. That's why Trump left the 10% on the other countries that the world cannot do without America. America's driving all of the global marketplace. I mean, we're the best one. We have the purchasing power. We consume. He says 39%. I mean, no, they can't compete. They can't.
Impossible for them to access the American market, which is 39% of all consumption in the world and 26.1% of the world's GDP. China cannot do without America, period. And the reason that Xi would care about this and be laser focused on it, he only gets to be the supreme leader in perpetuity while people are employed and eating and feeding and making sure their families are taken care of.
Yeah, and that's the nature of communism. If that breaks down, then you have revolution, because that's the nature of conflict theory, of Marxism. What he's saying is absolutely true. So yes, Trump is the first one that has entered into this fight. The fight's been the problem with China goes back to Nixon and Nixon opening up the Chinese market. And I've been reading some stuff, and I understand why Nixon and why Kissinger, his Secretary of State, why they saw the need to open up China, because they wanted to separate Russia, who was communist, the USSR at that time, from communist China. So they didn't link up. So it made sense to enter into this economic agreement with China. So we're in the middle of the Cold War. So China and Russia don't get together. But I mean, you're basically making a deal with the communist country, and China is very much still communist today. So I don't know that I understand why Nixon did what he did, but I don't know that I agree with it. But going back to the 60s, I mean, the clip that I just played from Nancy Pelosi's 1996, for decades we've been dealing with this, and we finally have a president that is taking them on. This is a clip of Donald Trump talking about China and it being measured against the things that Joe Biden, our most former president, said about China. Take a listen.
I have many people from China that I do business with. They laugh at us. They feel we're fools. They're getting away with absolute murder.
China's a great nation, and we should hope for the continued expansion.
I don't want to lose.
We should hope for the continued expansion of China, is what our former president of the United States says.
and we should hope for the continued expansion.
I don't want to lose $300 billion a year to China when we can't afford to build schools for our children, when we can't afford to build highways, when we can't afford to build railways, when we can't afford to build bridges. I want money to be invested in jobs and in this country. I don't want to rebuild China.
A rising China is a positive development, not only for China, but for America and the world writ large.
It was China's fault, and China's going to pay a big price what they've done to this country. China's going to pay a big price what they've done to the world. This was China's fault, and just remember that.
554,064 American dead from COVID-19. A lot of families want to know how this happened, how it got here. Have you had a chance to speak to any of your international partners, any of President Xi, who I know you go way back with? Have you had a chance to ask him if these reports are true that China maybe misled the world at the beginning?
No, I have not had that conversation with him.
You haven't had that conversation with him. Yeah, and when COVID-19, they told us again that all the lies that they told us that it didn't come from the lab. Now we know that it came from the lab. They let it spread throughout the wet market. They were disappearing doctors that were coming out on social media saying that we have a real problem here in Wuhan. There was doctors that China was just disappearing. They're disappearing a lot of people in China right now too. In Xi's inner circle, generals that are just disappearing. This is communism. They're a communist nation, but they let the virus spread there in Wuhan. They let travelers who had traveled into China for the Chinese New Year, because you remember it started spreading late January, February. So all these travelers coming in, it was so planned. All these travelers coming in for Chinese New Year. China lets those travelers fly out to the rest of the world, fly to Italy, fly to Seattle to spread the virus everywhere, but they don't let people fly from Wuhan to Beijing. You can't fly from Wuhan to Shanghai. And so this is just part of what is also fueling what's going on with this trade war, because China is not to be trusted. But look at the difference in the way Trump talks about China and the way Biden talked about China. Yes, Trump is doing something different than all of his predecessors since this has been going on, going back to Nixon. He's doing something different, and I'm here for it. I like it. I want you to listen to Geraldo Rivera here, and he's talking about what happened on Wednesday. Take a listen.
I believe that he ambushed China. I believe that he suckered the whole world into believing that he was going to go down in this, this Harry Carey, this suicide mission.
So you think this is
him against the world?
The plan all along?
I think with him, it's so much spontaneous. But I believe it evolved. I mean, Monday, so many people were feeling terrible pain.
Yeah,
I wasn't feeling pain on Monday. Monday was everything was on sale on Monday. If you knew what was going on, you bought on Monday. So, but yes, most people who are watching the media, listening to the fear, uncertainty, and doubt from all the talking heads in the media, if you were doing that, listening to those clowns, then yes, you were down in the dumps, watching your 401k, watching, your investments. What am I going to do? If you're listening to those people, the COVID people who told you that all the unvaccinated people should be dead by now, if you're listening to them, then yes, on Monday you were down in the dumps. But that's the whole thing. People are saying that like even Geraldo, if you don't know, he's not a big fan of Trump, but he doesn't even want to give him credit that this was planned. I mean, I don't know if it was planned or not, but it sure did work out well. The point, let me just tell you if Trump would have on Monday said that he was going to put 125%, 145% tariff on China, and he would have only singled out China, I think that the market would have crashed and he would have had nowhere to move. He would have had no movement. He put tariffs on everyone last week, on all these nations, 175 nations. Nobody retaliates except China. Everybody pretty much says that they want to negotiate in one way or the other. They want to play ball. So he brings their tariffs down, not eliminates eliminates the reciprocal part, but he doesn't eliminate the tariffs altogether. All those nations still have a 10% tariff. If he would have done that initially, he would have had nowhere to move. But he takes that, it takes everyone else down to 10% because China retaliates, which you can anticipate that they're going to retaliate. I mean, you don't know. I don't know if it was planned or not, but you can pretty much anticipate that China is going to be the one that retaliates if anybody retaliates. And they did retaliate. I don't understand why people are saying it wasn't planned or it couldn't have been planned. I believe it was planned. But even if it wasn't planned, it worked out beautifully.
That he suckered the whole world into believing that he was going to go down in this, this Harry Carey, this suicide mission.
So you think this was
against the world?
The plan all along?
I think with him, it's so much spontaneous, but I believe it evolved. I mean, Monday, so many people were feeling terrible pain.
Yeah.
The markets were tanking. There was no end in sight. People were watching their 401ks, their IRAs disappear. The whole nation was, I think, trembling over the uncertainty of where we were going with this. He was picking a fight with the entire world. So I said Monday, well, isn't the problem China? Why are we getting everybody, UK, European Union, Japan, etc. China's the problem. I couldn't understand it. But then this morning, I tell a New York story quickly.
Yep.
I'm at the Regency Hotel with a dear old friend of mine, David Sherrill, who does the stocks. Erica and I, my wife and I are together.
You're a broker?
You were my broker.
Of course.
And we're talking about, oh my God, this is awful, but we're doing the right thing. You have to have courage. You have to stick it out. I went to my Twitter followers. I said, please don't sell. This is on Sunday and Monday. Please don't sell unless you absolutely have to. And then, look what he does. Oh, surprise. This is why Trump is triumphant. This is why you can't beat this guy.
Great breakfast, by the way, at the Regency.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about it? The president, you talk about going to your Twitter followers. He went to his, I don't think it was Twitter, it's probably his own platform, Truth Social, right after the market opened today. And he said, great time to buy.
What a tease. But then, when he said that, everything was gloom and doom.
Yeah.
Right, but he knew he was going to make this announcement.
It wasn't even 9. It was 9 hours later. Yes, he knew. He knew what he was going to do. And the brilliant thing about him putting the reciprocal tariff on the other 175 to 200 nations, that when he takes it off of them, all but 10%, it's still got 10%. But when he takes it off of them, and then he escalates this trade war with China, because the United States and China are the two major markets, then he's going to force those other 175 nations to choose between doing business with us, who O'Leary says that we make up 39% of the world's consumption. Man, that's such a high number. I'm going to have to look into that number. But Trump's going to make those other 175 nations, because he's put that tariff on and then taken it off. Now they're ready to negotiate, and he's going to make them choose between doing business with us or doing business with China. And that's another reason also that he wants this war to end in Ukraine, and he wants to enter into a relationship with Russia, is because the same way that Nixon and Kissinger were thinking that, we can prevent China and Russia from joining together in the 1970s, right now, Russia is not communist. The Soviet Union fell. Russia is not communist, and it would be very bad for Russia and China to join together now. Two great nuclear powers. So to prevent that from happening, it makes more sense. Ukraine's not worth us allowing Russia and China to get together. So that's why he wants to end this war in Ukraine, so we can build a stronger economic relationship with Russia, so Russia and China don't get together. Then he can isolate China. So he uses tariffs with all these other countries to force those countries to do business with us instead of China, isolates Russia from China, and China's isolated. That's what this guy's doing. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So everyone's trying to say now that the reason that Trump made his change and that he was spooked, and that on Wednesday he announced that he was removing the reciprocal tariffs from all 175 plus nations, and that he was increasing the tariff on China. Everyone's saying that he made that decision because of the bond market, which again doesn't make any sense. That he was looking at the bond market. Now, let me explain to you what bonds are, because a lot of people don't understand what bonds are. The stock market is what they were talking about at first. And I don't have a lot of time to get into this. And I don't know how deep I want to get into it, because I'm definitely going to want to pick it back up on Friday. But the stock market is you're buying pieces of company. You're buying shares in a company. The bond market is you're buying shares in nations, in municipalities. Bonds are how this is created. This $36.7 trillion in debt plus is created through treasury bonds. And treasury bonds are secure because they are usually governments and municipalities. So they're secure, but they're low yield, and investors usually have diversified portfolios where they have some stocks and some treasury bonds. If the stock market's not doing great, they'll pull their money out of the stock market and put it into security of treasury bonds. And so you have two different markets. You have the bond markets and you have the treasury market. I mean, the bond market, and you have the stock market. Stock market, you're buying shares in companies, and in the bond market, you're buying shares in nations. You own pieces of nations. And again, that this is how this debt is created. And even the debt in states and cities is created through bonds. So bonds are different than stocks. So the stock market goes up on Wednesday, and then everyone starts to say, yeah, the stock market went up, but the bond market is volatile right now. And that's what forced Trump to go back on his plan to implement tariffs on all these nations, including China. Trump says this in the I guess this is in the Rose Garden or somewhere there at the White House, and people just run with it and say, oh, that Trump was spooked by the bond market. I mean, you think Trump's stupid? You don't think Trump doesn't know that China? Let me just play what he's.
It does take guts, believe me.
Was it the bond markets that persuaded you to reverse course?
I was watching the bond market. The bond market is very tricky. I was watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy. I think everything had. Well, the big move wasn't what I did today. The big move was what I did on Liberation Day. We had Liberation Day in America. We were liberated from all of the horrible deals that were made, all of the horrible trade deals that were made. And I was helped by people just like this, senator, congressman, and friends, right? And we had great help in the Senate. Our Republican senators have been amazing. They stood tall.
So he says, yes, I was watching the bond market. The question itself leads you to understand the media narrative is that he was watching the bond market. What had happened was the night before Japan. So I want you to understand how the bond market works. This is who owns our debt. This debt right here. This debt, this nearly $37 trillion. This is how it breaks down with United States Treasury securities, bonds. The majority of our debt, and this is in 2022, the debt then was $30 trillion. So we're 3 years later and 6 trillion, 7 trillion more in debt than what is reflective here. But in 2022, the majority of the debt is held by the Federal Reserve, the central bank, and this is our private investors. We don't even know who those people are. The Federal Reserve and government accounts. So those are the largest holder. The second largest holder are foreign investors investing in the United States. That foreign money, that foreign nations own pieces of this debt. And one of the countries that owns the majority of this debt is China. You don't think Trump knows this? You don't think that Trump knows that China can dump their treasuries and jump their treasuries and hurt the United States and damage the value of the United States dollar at any time? You think that he was just surprised by the bond market? You think that this guy entered into a trade war with China, not understanding the bond market? So these are the largest holders of our debt, foreign holders of our debt, major foreign holders of United States debt. Japan is number one. Japan owns $1.8 trillion of United States debt. These are shares that Japan owns in the United States. $1 trillion of this belongs to Japan, to these in these treasury bonds. China's number two with $870 billion. So what happened on Tuesday night, Japan, can you believe this, that we dropped, when I was looking at this, I was like, it's amazing. We dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, and they are the largest foreign holder of United States debt. But Japan on Tuesday night started dumping some of their treasuries. China at any time can start dumping United States treasury if they really wanted to hurt us, and they could devalue the dollar. If that's what they want to do. China has the leverage. They have this leverage over us in this trade war, and this is a big deal. And if you don't think Trump understands that, then you're crazy. He's not crazy. You're crazy. Trump understands the bond market. Trump understands that China has this leverage over us, that they can dump these treasuries anytime. Nothing would be better than for them to do that. Why won't China dump these treasuries? Because going back to what I was telling you in the last podcast about how China has editorial control over what Hollywood movies, and how they forced Hollywood to change the script of Red Dawn that had made China the villain in the movie, and other editorial and creative controls that they have over Hollywood. Why do they do that? Because they want China wants to make sure that they're portrayed in a positive light in the eyes of Americans, because they understand that a lot of this trade war is a propaganda PR war. And China doesn't want the American people to see them as a dangerous communist nation that has ill intent. They don't want Americans to understand that, because if Americans understand that, then Americans are willing to sacrifice. They're willing to rally around the president, because they're going to war with this foreign power, these Chinese that are really threatening us. So that if they dump their treasuries, and they start hurting the United States by dumping their treasuries, then they're showing their hand. So in some aspect, I think Trump wants to force them to do that, so American people will see, just how bad China is. Because most Americans, they don't see China as being their enemy, and a lot of that is because of the media portrayals of China, and China has influence in American media, a lot of influence, as you're getting ready to see. This is what John Kasich, the former governor of Ohio, said on CNN the other night. I want you to listen to what John Kasich says. And John Kasich, before he was the governor of Ohio, he was in Congress for a long time. Listen to John Kasich here.
Let me just suggest this. Look, we have a $37 trillion national debt. If we don't begin to deal with this, what we've been seeing here in the last couple days will be child's play for what we will see if people stop buying our treasuries, if they stop financing our debt. And then what happens is you've got to run a printing press. And if you run a printing press, you begin to significantly devalue all of Americans' hardworking effort, because their dollars will be worth much less.
Well, that's not what Alan Greenspan said. This is what Alan Greenspan said, Kasich.
The United States can pay any debt it has because we can always print money to do that. There is zero probability of default.
So the United States can pay any debt because we can always print more money to do that. We can always print more money to do that, is what Alan Greenspan, who was the Fed chair during the Clinton administration, says. Let's listen to Kasich, what Kasich says here again, and then we're going to listen to Alan Greenspan again. What did you say, Kasich?
And then what happens is you've got to run a printing press. And if you run a printing press, you begin to significantly devalue all of Americans' hardworking effort because their dollars will be worth much less.
So Kasich says that because of our $37 trillion in debt, that it's a significant problem. And if we don't have people buying our treasury bonds, then we're going to have to just print more money. And if we print more money, that devalues the value of the dollar. But Alan Greenspan just says that we can pay any debt because we can just print more money, is what he says.
The United States can pay any debt it has because we can always print money to do that.
So who's correct? Who's correct here? Who would you listen to if you're at home and you don't know about this stuff and you're just watching Kasich on CNN say the debt's a serious problem, that printing money devalues the dollar. And Alan Greenspan saying that we can pay any debt because we can always print more money. They both can't be right. Who's telling the truth here? It's this guy. This guy's telling the truth. Kasich understands this stuff. This was interesting. I saw this. I have just a little bit more time. I have a couple of things I want to get to real quick, but this guy posted a picture from this book, and it's written about Clinton called The Bells of Hope. And Bill Clinton, he's quoted saying here, he's talking about Robert Rubin, his Treasury Secretary. Rubin, who had made a fortune on Wall Street, was joining the Clinton team to coordinate economic policies at the White House. And Leon Panetta, the California congressman who Clinton had tapped to be the federal budget director, Panetta had been startled in his job interview to discover the gaps in Clinton's understanding. The mood in the room that day was subdued, even academic during much of the discussion. But this was broken when Clinton suddenly flushed with rude, what is that? Epiphany, a rude epiphany. So they're having this discussion in the Oval Office, Leon Panetta and Rubin, and they're talking about the economic situation, and Clinton has this epiphany, and this is in quotes. You mean to tell me that the success of my program and my reelection hinges on the Federal Reserve and a bunch of effing bond traders? That's what Clinton says. You mean to tell me that the success of my program and my reelection hinges on the Federal Reserve and a bunch of effing bond traders? This was the chairman of the Federal Reserve when Clinton was saying that. This guy, Alan Greenspan, bunch of effing bond traders. So China has retaliated against Trump's trade policies. This just happened today, against Trump's tariffs on them, 145%. China just put 125% on all goods that go into China from the United States. China strikes back, 125% tariffs on U.S. goods and trade war. And they're putting out this. These are Chinese people putting out this propaganda, AI generated stuff to say like, you want manufacturing jobs, and it's all these overweight people eating chips, making Nikes, and this is coming from Chinese people making fun of us. They're all overweight, They're putting out several of these. So it's not just the trade war. It's also the PR war. And they understand this. They understand the PR war, the propaganda war. They're putting all these are AI generated, putting all these out. This is coming from the Chinese government. So they're increasing their tariffs. They're fully engaged in the trade war, fully engaged. God, I have so much more that I want to share with you guys and get back into this on Monday. So China, this says that they're reportedly considering, it's not reportedly considering, they did ban United States films into China. So all the movies, United States movies coming into China, they ban. This person tweets it out and it says, so this would financially catastrophic. This would be financially catastrophic for the film industry. If China shuts off their market to the film industry, this would be financially catastrophic, is what this person says. So they did do this. China has, this is one of the parts of their retaliation is shutting off movies into the Chinese market, which this person says would be financially catastrophic to the film industry. Why is this important? Because the same people that own the news agencies own the film industries. There's only a handful of multinational media corporations. We talked about Disney and their partnership with China in the last episode, but it's not only Disney. I mean, look at this. I mean, NBC Universal, who owns MSNBC. They also own, it's owned by Comcast. They also own DreamWorks. So it's just the film industry. Warner Brothers, who owns Warner Brothers Pictures and Films. They also own CNN. So China, again, they understand the propaganda and PR war, hurting the film industry, which is owned by the same people who own the news industry. What is that going to do to the news? What is the news doing right now? The fear, the uncertainty, the same type of programming that they did during COVID, which started in China. These people are in bed with China, the people. And why do these people have so much power? Because of this guy. Because of this guy and the Telecommunications Act that he signed in 1996 empowered all of this media cross ownership. So the same people that own the movies own the news. So if they're going to be financially crippled by China shutting off their markets to their films, then that's going to change the way they report their news, because they're all connected. They're all owned by the same people. Trump was asked about this retaliatory move by China to shut off Chinese markets to American films. Take a listen to what he says.
China retaliated today by reducing the number of American films that can be shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things.
I think I've heard of worse things, is what he says. Man, I had so much more that I wanted to share with you guys. We're going to get right back into this on Friday because I'm explaining how we created the $37 trillion in debt. I want to explain all this stuff to you. We're going to get back into the bond market and what's going on there. You guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.